Adventures in a great new show. C'est an all-new Saturday morning. You see it bien, c'est an all-new Saturday morning.
Hello and welcome to Classic Cartoon Rewind, the podcast where we invite you to watch along with us as we journey through every cartoon based on a comic book from 1940 to 1999. I'm your host, Carter Hutchison.
And I'm your co-host, Huey V.
And if you've listened to Classic Cartoon Rewind before, you will notice that we're missing a Mike. That's a Mike Thomas that's not present at the time. So
Young Mike.
There we go. So we pulled in Huey from producer role to co-host in here. So, but you watch along with us when we're doing these, anyways. So
throw it on YouTube, and as soon as you guys start, hit it on play.
Exactly. So you've seen these just as much as Mike and I have.
It's giving me like a larger appreciation for DC.
Okay.
Or Superman especially.
Mm-hmm.
Just like where it's how far it's gone.
I like this power level Superman personally.
Yeah.
Where you're not making him he can't punch planets out of orbit or something like that.
That doesn't happen until another 10 years when...
That sounds Silver Agey, so 50s, 60s.
When they start really amping up the power levels and really using the name Super.
Yeah, true. Then you have a Super Dog, Super Streaky the Super Cat.
Oh, they
were
Crypto just capitalizing on it and then just giving them any type of power.
Comet the Super Horse for Supergirl. You ever look that up? It's
weird. They had the super pets, wasn't they?
Yes, but Comet, I think, can somewhat transform into a human, if I remember correctly.
That's creepy.
And has a sexual attraction to Supergirl. That's the creepy
part.
Right?
little bestiality don't hurt, I guess.
Maybe that's kosher on Krypton.
I guess.
Right. I don't know. She grew up there, so it'd be a little different.
You don't know my culture. It's my life. I do what I want.
That's that's my problem with Captain Kirk in the original Star Trek series is how the Federation will show up at a planet that they know nothing about. Tell them their culture is wrong.
Oh man.
Kirk will punch someone and then everybody's in a fight. In my opinion, at least in the original Star Trek series, the Federation are the bad guys. It's just classic American manifest destiny bullshit. Okay, back on to Superman, though. The first episode we're watching today is Terror on the Midway. That episode premiered August 23rd. Excuse me. That episode premiered on the 23rd of August in 1942. And here are some events that also occurred that same month. A Jerry Garcia was born in San Francisco. He's the singer, songwriter, and guitarist for the Grateful Dead. The musical Holiday Inn, starring Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire, was released. That's a big movie in my household because they made a remake of it later in the 50s called White Christmas. And that is my family's Christmas Eve movie. We watched that movie every single Christmas Eve. I could tell it to you from beginning to end.
Question, do you guys dress up like Elf on the Shelf?
No. We do...
That's so disappointing.
I kind of hate Elf on the Shelf.
I totally see you guys doing that.
No. Fuck you, Huey. You're messing.
I'm totally going to get Ashley on that.
Yeah. No, Ashley hates as much as I do. We got roped in by my stepson, his dad and stepmom. They started the Elf on the Shelf thing. So to keep the illusion up, we had to do it.
So that wasn't just a joke.
No,
That's
we got
hostage,
into doing it.
You need to talk to Jill.
Anyways, 1942, August. Also, the Walt Disney animated film Bambi had its premiere in London.
Oh,
the movie is that old. But then again, that's the same kind of animation period we're in, right? They're really putting a lot of money into animation, and it's really high quality. I think every dollar is on the screen.
It shows, too, though.
Totally. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what Disney was up to at the time.
Thinking about it, you have Bambi, Snow White, and all that, and just the Fantasia, all of the movement and everything was just so clean.
Yeah, Disney
still holds up today.
It does. I'm not a big Fantasia fan, but we talked about that before.
Ashley is.
She does like Fantasia. Yeah, my wife does.
She made us watch that one.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I'm just not a fan. Besides the Mickey part and the part at the end with the like devil over the mountain
Yeah.
and the town thing. I like both of those. The rest I don't really care for.
Yeah.
A lot of World War II stuff going on.
Yeah,
Obviously,
of
the
course.
stuff that stuck out to me was that the Luftwaffe conducted the first major bombing raid on Stalingrad. So Germany's doing that two-front war, which eventually leads, in my opinion, that's why Germany lost the war, was because they started messing with Russia. And what's that line from Princess Bride? Never get caught in a land war in Asia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did that, and they, you know, you're gonna lose. No one invades Russia. Like, it's impossible to invade Russia. But this is the beginnings of that. And then there was the Battle of Guadalcanal, which was the first major offensive for the Allies in the Pacific. So it's not like a huge victory as far as like what we gained from it. It's more of a morale victory, I feel like. We had Marines that launched a surprise attack on Japanese troops and took control of an air base that was under construction.
Okay.
So the Pacific theater is ramping up as well.
Gotta love history, man.
Man, going through the goings-ons and the months that these come out, because it's kind of nice, too, since these were premiering with movies, it's every month, right? Once we start getting into shows that are every week, our current event stuff might not be as lengthy because, you know, not every week is jam-packed with events.
Gotta get your mind off all that crazy stuff that's happening.
That's right. That's right. Watch some Superman, right?
Yep.
You know, dad or brother is away at the war, and
scrounge up some change and go to movies.
Totally. So, while if you want to watch along with us, we have the Paramount logo on pause. You can legally watch the Superman Max Fleischer cartoon on the DC app. They're all on YouTube as well, though. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to get it paused up with us while we're hearing a message from our Patreon. All of Grassroots Comics is funded through our Patreon, patreon.com/grassrootscomics. For as little as $1 a month, you can become part of the Grassroots Comics community, which includes many perks, such as having your name mentioned in this segment of every episode of the podcast, the ability to suggest topics of discussion for shows like These Guys Have Issues, access to the private Grassroots Comics subreddit where members can continue discussions started on the podcast or start their own, behind-the-scenes access to the GRC studio, and early access to digitally released comics and Classic Cartoon Rewind. So it is the goal of all of us here at Grassroots Comics Productions that one day the Patreon is strong enough where we are able to produce the stories, artwork, and stop-motion animation shorts pitched and selected by the Grassroots Comics community. But the only way that becomes possible is with a strong Patreon. So if you feel that the entertainment value you receive from this podcast is at least worth 25 cents, then please become a Patreon contributor today, and with our powers combined, we can have all of our stories heard. All right, now let's get on with the rest of the show. Okay, so we've got the Paramount logo on pause. I'm going to hit play in 3, 2, 1. So this first episode, Terror on the Midway, this is the last episode made by Fleischer Studios.
Right, okay.
The next one is when Fleischer Studios kind of runs out of money and they become another studio called Famous Studios. We've kind of been teasing this and leading up to it, that the Famous Studios episodes are much more topical and of its time than the Fleischer Studios were more like sci-fi stories.
So you're having to touch on a lot more like dicier issues.
Yeah, well, the second episode we're covering is the Japators, so we're right on, hitting the nail on the head with World War II, propaganda almost.
Yeah, this is that last episode we watched with the
sail higher than any plane. So they're changing up the intro now.
Kind of throwing out the maybe you could fly type of thing.
Right.
Okay,
because that started with the series was him flying.
You couldn't really tell. He was like maybe jumping really hard to the point
able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Yeah, because they didn't really touch the flying thing.
No. So we officially got that in the intro here.
A little shift.
No matter how many times I come back to these cartoons, and I know we've said this 1,000 times with the Max Fleischer series, but the animation is just so gorgeous.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, you could just, if it was like a little bit longer, maybe like 30 minutes to an hour long, you could just curl up like today and just
totally,
like comfort night.
Yeah,
just watch all of this.
You could binge watch them, you know.
Yeah.
That's a little dark, Clark.
Just like,
jeez. We're covering a circus? Isn't someone being murdered somewhere in Metropolis?
See, it is a circus. Crazier things happen.
Maybe there's some flying Graysons around here.
Oh,
you know, a Tony Zuko lurking in the
Let's
shadows somewhere.
Throw that out there.
Right? Although, like, yeah, Robin's a character by this point. I think 1941 was Robin's
at this point
debut.
Really?
At least in the comics, you know, there's not like a Batman cartoon or anything at this point.
It would be dope if they had the fourth.
Oh, that would be sweet.
The fourth to like do a whole
dude, just
Easter
get
egg.
Max Fleischer to make a 40s Batman cartoon. That would have been wonderful. Which is basically what the animated series was in the 90s. They took all their inspiration from the Fleischer show.
Amazing animation at that time, too.
Yes.
Amazing.
People call that all the big 90s shows that were coming out at that point, like you know, Tiny Toons and stuff. That's referred to as the second golden age of Warner Brothers animation, when this is obviously the first.
Still holds up.
It does.
That's why it's golden.
So we're here in the circus. A chimp seems to have let out a massive gorilla. So we've got some kind of King Kong.
Yeah, let's say King
tropes
Kong
going on. This is King Kong. Yes, it's King Kong.
Give him a little Mighty Joe Young type of feel.
Okay.
You know? He's
okay.
that tall.
And
how are they getting those lassos up there?
Talented. Presenting Gigantic. So that's a creative name there for the.
So this is in Japan.
Where are you getting that from?
I was thinking maybe this might be in like Japan or some parts of Asia, maybe.
I think we're still in Metropolis here.
Okay.
But whoa. Huh.
Oh, those
that
poor elephants, man.
might have been the first time that looked like reused animation with the elephants running towards you.
Really?
Yeah, that because they just showed the same scene of an elephants running toward. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong there, because there was debris falling in the
Reused it
second
and then
time.
like remastered it a little bit and draw over it.
Or just like, you know how some comic artists will reuse panels in the same book. Just to
in
save
cartoons
time.
as well, when they're like running, you
Totally.
see like the background moving. It's the same background.
Oh yeah. You know, once we get to like 70s animation, think Scooby Doo with
Like
only the legs are being animated and
my God.
the
Great
background's
stories,
moving.
great universe, bad animation.
Terrible animation, yeah. I feel the same way about the Disney Robin Hood movie, where he's a fox from the 70s. I love that movie, especially as a kid. It was great. Going back and watching as an adult, you notice how awful the animation is in that, especially for Disney.
Almost cringeworthy.
Yeah.
You know, like with this, Lois just gets into so much trouble.
She's got nose for danger, man. I do like the use of shadows here with the, showing them trying to contain the chaos of the circus, and Clark is arriving back and trying to do what he can to help. Oh, jeez. Now an elephant backed up into a lion's cage, so we're about to get that soon.
Now it's just all chaos. It's a cougar.
You know what this looks like? This looks like a job for Superman.
We'll get there.
Okay.
As he
yep,
just
here
said.
we go.
He just said it.
Oh, cool.
Now he's got to throw them hands. Get in there. You got time, man.
Yeah, that was easy. Right? That was easy for Superman.
Get in there, kidding.
I feel like that gorilla is going to be a bit more difficult, but
Lois? Or you saying this whole situation?
For Superman to get the gorilla back in whatever kind of cage or
Yeah,
subdue.
because like you said before, this isn't like the Superman that we know of. This is more of like he can be hurt by mortal things.
Well, there's no kryptonite at this point, right? So you can't make your character so insanely overpowered without a weakness.
That is true.
So I guess really kryptonite is what facilitates Superman becoming as overpowered as he does later. Is that, well, if you have this green glowing rock, he's super weak. But
he has.
At this point, it has to be believable that he could theoretically be like beaten to death, right?
He has superhuman strength,
yes.
But he's like not even considered an alien bro at this point. He's just superhuman. It's
great to throw him in a circus though, because his costume design was from a like circus strongman.
Okay,
that's why he has the underwear on the outside was a circus strongman trope.
Oh, the animation that they did while he was kind of like rearing back to punch is with the close up of his face.
Nice.
That was completely different than what I've seen so
far. They kind of do. It looks like oil paintings almost when they get close-ups.
Yeah,
Batman the Animated Series would do that as well. If you think of the classic opening to Batman the Animated Series, there's that part where Batman jumps onto the roof that the crooks are in. It zooms in on his face, and it looks like an oil. You can tell it's a different animation style.
They scale things really weird.
As far as like size?
Yeah, so
yeah.
That gorilla was like Mighty Joe Young, and then it just turned to like maybe a foot taller than
Superman.
Clark. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks to Superman.
That was
good. He was there.
That was good.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a pretty just standard Superman story. Clark and Lois go to a circus. Chaos ensues. Clark turns to Superman and helps save the day.
I love the synopsis that was on there before you like hit play, and the last line was "Save the world," protect the planet and save Lois Lane.
Nice.
And that's just the thing. That's the main theme right there. If she's gonna be there,
right?
Because
she's in all these.
Yeah. So if she's gonna be there, you gotta have that. That's her role. She's smart.
Yeah.
She can get into anything.
Yes.
She's manipulative when it comes to Clark, but at the same time,
yes.
You wouldn't have that aspect of there's a little bit more danger because there's like Lois there that needs help. If you didn't have her there, you would just be Superman, saving the day, and there wouldn't be that like extra bit of suspense in there.
True.
So you need that damsel in distress type character just so you can, drive a good storyline, drive the drama up a lot more.
Pull for Superman, someone that he knows.
That's why you have your Mary Janes and
I was just about to go
everything.
there. Yeah.
So you have your Daphne from Scooby Doo.
Okay,
you gotta
she
have
is always getting captured, and yeah, that's true.
Not until Sarah Michelle Gellar got her.
I would actually say that this Lois does have more agency than female characters would have for a long time. There was an episode we saw where she picked up a Tommy gun and started shooting at the bulleteers that were going to try to rob that train and stuff.
And for it to be the time, I guess this was around the time where this was in Great Depression time, or was this Great Depression? Or this after?
We're post a little bit, I guess, because it's World War II that brings us out of the Great Depression.
So at this time, men are at war, women are working.
In the home front. You got Rosie the Riveter, right?
Yeah, Rosie the Riveter. So at this point, it's not uncommon to see females that are, stronger in a sense.
Right. But, I would think that seeing a woman in the workplace is maybe a little bit of a, maybe not shocker at this point, but she's uncommon.
She's really mouthy.
Yes.
Really mouthy.
She's very driven,
Very driven, and it's like at that time, that wouldn't fly. And
right.
She wouldn't even be
or would not be expected.
To have a press pass.
Yeah.
To have a press pass.
I love that, too, that she steals Clark's. Okay, so the second episode is titled The Japators, which this is going to be the first Famous Studios episode, so we're getting into more World War II type themes. It premiered on the 18th of September in 1942. So it's a month after the first one, or the one we just watched, right? Terror on the Midway. And I was saying that the Germans started the bombing of Stalingrad at that point, right? So only a month later, the Germans are now occupying the center of Stalingrad. So that raid was obviously successful. Also, Joseph Stalin signed an instruction ordering the resumption of the Soviet nuclear research program. So the Soviets are kind of starting to dabble into that as well. Meanwhile, in the U.S., it's funny that these two things happened the same month. The Manhattan Project was granted approval by the War Production Board to use the highest level of emergency priorities. So the beginnings of the end. The beginnings of the end of the war, basically. So that's kind of a neat thing to have in the back of your mind, that the atomic age is about to begin. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
All of these cartoons, all these these productions just mesh so well with the time.
Yes, and I mean,
So I guess that you have to get your
Marvel
mind on
wouldn't be Marvel if it wasn't for the atomic age.
Oh yeah, of course.
All their heroes are spawned out of that, really.
Yeah.
Whereas DC does some alien and at this time some magic stuff.
But
Like
Marvel's
Green
all
Lantern was a
dystopian
magic character.
times. Yeah.
Right.
All dystopian, post-apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah.
The
Science
aliens-
gone wrong.
Yeah.
Radioactive spider blood.
Mad Max type of stuff.
There we go. Okay, so if you're watching along with us, we have the Japators on pause with the Paramount logo. I am going to hit play in 3, 2, 1.
Swoosh.
Yeah, the closed captioning can always provide a laugh there.
They gave you a swoosh.
My wife and I were watching, I can't remember which Marvel movie it was, but we had Redboxed and we were watching it at home. And my wife really likes to have subtitles on so she can catch all the dialogue.
Yeah, me too.
So I thought I had turned it on, but what I had actually turned on was audio for the blind. So I didn't know that, right? So the movie begins with the Marvel logo, and then you hear this narrator start going, Marvel logo, Captain America throws his shield, Iron Man, Thor flies in,
That's
and we were
amazing.
like, what the fuck is happening?
That
like,
is amazing.
yeah, I could almost watch the whole movie like that. Oh, I remember what it was now. It was Ragnarok, because I turned it back on for the Stan Lee cameo. Because the guy was like, Thor enters the room and it appears to be some alien, blah blah blah, but who is in fact Stan Lee. Like they totally spoil it for you in it.
Miles Manning,
Mhm.
Porter.
I feel like phrases like that and like "man about town" were like thrown around. Like I'm a big Shadow fan, and that's what is attached to Lamont Cranston is wealthy man about town, Lamont Cranston. So world's largest bombing plane finally completed. Guess who's gonna try to steal that?
Bink.
There we go. So this we're in an office of a Japanese gentleman who
God,
had
I didn't want
a
to see his face like frontward, see his teeth and everything.
yeah.
see how this
We
looks.
get into some not good racial stereotypes here. This is kind of when the cartoon does start to show its age, because we haven't really had any of that yet, I feel like.
Yeah, I guess right now, do you even like consider any of that wrong at the time?
I don't think you consider it wrong.
I mean, now it's like, ooh. you know.
Yeah, it just doesn't sit well with a modern audience.
See, obviously times have changed, but it's like this was meant to be
Yes.
what it was. You know?
Yeah. I mean, because there was a lot of, anti-Japanese sentiment in
Mhm.
America at this
And we had
time.
the dark, another dark period in time with internment
Exactly.
camps and everything. And so
It's basically, if you were alive during 9/11 and what we experienced afterwards with the backlash to the Muslim community within America, it's basically the same thing, but against the Japanese community.
the only thing is it was a lot easier at that time to do it. This time now it's like
Well, yeah.
a lot.
Wow, that plane is
That is
massive.
huge. it's gonna shrink like tenfold in like 3 minutes. Still gonna be shiny.
Oh, okay. Lois let Clark keep his press pass this time.
Yeah.
He actually got in.
I feel like that would be a little bit more messed up for her to just like. So y'all have to work together on this one.
Right. Try to work together. Notice she's the only woman on the plane. All the other reporters that are there are men.
I like her. She takes no guff.
Yeah, she's gonna stow away on the plane here, of course. How does Clark not know Lois well enough by this point to be like, no, you go first. You're leaving the plane first. I'm behind you. I'm making sure you get off this. So, I don't have to turn into Superman later and come here
It's
and save
like
your
at
ass.
this point now, it's like whenever you're around, something always happens.
It's always something, Lois. It's always something. One of these days.
One of these days,
Pow.
straight
Straight
to
to
the moon.
Krypton.
Dang it! Why didn't I think of that?
No, that's cool. So the giant bomber plane is launching other planes off of the top. So
Do you know how much of a devastating idea that would be today, with the technology
Yes.
we have?
So is this kind of like a precursor to the the floating carrier that Shield has?
Yeah, like the helicarrier.
Right, that
yeah.
kind of reminds me of that.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay, so the same Japanese man we saw from the beginning has snuck aboard the ship here in the bombs that were loaded in earlier. Him and a couple henchmen, it looks like. So they're here
with some pistols.
There you go.
Pistols to take over
Hey,
a whole.
that's all you need to
It's
hijack
really-
it, right?
Yeah. I guess with the material still used.
No, a gun is enough to hijack a plane
Yeah.
today. According to the, TVA people or whatever, liquid over 3 ounces or something is probably enough to hijack a plane.
Jeez.
So again, this is another spot that I think the series could really use from a HD remastering.
My God, dude.
Some of the cells you really see the kind of grainy pops and stuff. It's not all the time, but it sticks out in a few episodes. But just to go in and clean it up would make the show look even more gorgeous than it
Japs
already
are
does.
stealing. Did
she say that?
She said Japs are stealing. And like I said, it's like it's the time now.
Right,
We
I
look
mean
at
that
it
was in
and we just-
headlines. Japs bomb Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, it's like
That
you
was-
remember watching MASH, and that they would talk about the people and call them savages. And that's how they refer to their opponents.
That's even the 70s when that
Yeah.
show was coming out.
So it was like it was of the time. It was so common for them to say that because they were the enemy.
Right. Yeah, and
But
you're
you could-
right. It's really easy to dehumanize your enemy and just think of them as savages, as subhuman. Unfortunately, that is a very humanistic trait.
I mean, thank God things have changed. Obviously,
True.
You know,
Somewhat.
somewhat.
Right.
You know.
Still, really not as far as we. Oh, that's Superman straight up flying.
Now he's flying.
Right. All right. So he makes his way aboard the plane here.
It's not even what Japanese people sound
Right, like an
like.
accent. Yeah.
It's not even a Japanese accent.
And condescending, Superman calls him Little Man. But I guess that's not too far from Trump calling Kim Rocket Man.
Yeah.
Right. Those poor guys, poor
This guy
two
flipped,
henchmen
man.
to take on Superman. This dude just flew aboard your plane. Can you imagine how weird that is in 1942? You're on a plane, like it's closed. There's
It's like the
nobody
concept
else.
of superheroes isn't a thing.
Right, and then all of a sudden, there's another dude who wasn't on the plane when you took off
You
on
just
your plane.
turn
now.
around and you're like, oh,
You
boss.
watch any Firefly, Huey?
I watched a little bit of Firefly.
Did you see that last episode where the bounty hunter sneaks aboard Serenity?
Uh-uh.
It
I think I
reminds
watched.
me of
I
that.
watced the movie a long time ago.
Oh, I
but
love the
didn't watch
movie's
the show.
excellent. But it reminds me of that like these characters are in the middle of space, like dark, middle of nowhere space, right? So like how jarring is that to
How you get here?
Right, that's literally a
Bruh.
character has that conversation with them. Excellent series.
He's like, I've been here the whole entire time. Didn't get that series. Did not get the respect it deserves.
No, unfortunately. But Fox has a bad habit of canceling things.
Oh, those
before
around.
they,
Oh, dude. Like at least 15 shows got canceled off of them in one year.
Right. Well, like they canceled Family Guy. I can tell you how many times. And
I don't think.
Which this is a classic Superman story, right? How many times have we seen Superman saving a plane from hitting Metropolis?
That's actually like, I feel like that's just a thing, you know. That's just a thing superheroes have to do. Save your town from a plane that's coming in, you know. Go back to the Spider-Man video game. You save the town from a plane at least twice. A helicopter and a plane.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, you know, that one wasn't like...
It wasn't too dicey, but I still see what... I could see what people would...
There is a difference, obviously, that we're starting between the, you know, the famous studio, the ones in the Fleischer studio ones.
Japa Tours.
Yeah, even just with the title, you kind of know what you're going to get here. Okay, so the next episode of Classic Cartoon Rewind, we're going to be covering Showdown, which I think Showdown is my favorite episode of this series. Basically, it's this like mob guy and his henchmen try to impersonate Superman to do a bunch of robberies. Oh, God. And then that's a bad idea, right? Surprise. And then the next episode we'll be doing is the 11th Hour. So we're on episodes 11 and 12 of 17. So, you know, before you know it, we're going to be done with this man and on a Johnny Quest next month.
I'm excited about Johnny Quest, man.
I am so stoked
I'm
for
excited
Johnny Quest.
about that.
I love that show, and you know, I'll kind of get more into this when I'm doing my intro into this show, like I did for Max Fleischer series, just kind of setting the groundwork of what the show is. That, you know, Johnny Quest, when it started, wasn't based on like one comic book per se, but it was based on comic books. Like, as far as the animation style and stuff went.
Did you ever watch the remake of it in the 90s?
Oh, yeah. The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest.
Yeah, with the virtual
Quest
reality.
World.
Oh,
right. It was basically like Tron. Yeah.
Good
I don't know
stuff,
if we'll be covering
man.
that one.
I was thinking, are we going to go up to that point?
I haven't seen that as an adult. I don't know how that ages. And I already felt like I was kind of cheating by putting in the original Johnny Quest series, since it's not technically based on a comic book.
Well,
comic books come later.
Yeah, with those shows...
If you haven't read Future Quest, read that. It's excellent.
I'll pick it up.
It's all the action Hanna-Barbera cartoons
in
like a shared universe deal. It's so good.
Because I remember having a conversation where I was like, they need to do a lot more the Hanna-Barbera stuff in these. Because I saw like a picture of like Powerpuff Girls fighting Superman.
Sweet, yeah.
You know how epic that battle would be,
right? We needed to get Mike on that with how he's kind of obsessed with like power levels and stuff between Power Girl and Superman. That would work. I'm sorry, Powerpuff Girls, not Power Girls.
The Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah. Okay. So that has been Classic Cartoon Rewind. I'm your host, Carter Hutchison.
I'm your co-host, Huey V.
And this episode was produced by KPJ. We'll see you next Saturday, kiddos.
This has been a Grassroots Comics production. Da da da! So what's your story?
Well, some kind of silly cartoon.
You got a problem with cartoons?